When you think of the first moon landing, I wonder who comes to mind. Neil Armstrong seems like an obvious choice, doesn't it? Maybe even Buzz Aldrin, if you know a few of the kind of finer details. But I wonder if the name Katherine Johnson means anything to you. While she wasn't on the space shuttle that took that giant leap for mankind, Katherine worked for NASA, and she was instrumental in calculating the paths for spacecrafts to orbit and land. It was her calculations, her kind of maths equations, that meant that the Apollo 11 was able to land on the moon safely, hundreds of thousands of miles away from Earth. But for many, many years, she was forgotten. She was unheard of until many years later, and in recent years in the film Hidden Figures, which tells her story. I wonder how we would react if we knew this was going to happen to us. To work so hard for something for such a long time, but to get no recognition. When we look out at our Old Testament passage for today, we see Moses is in a similar situation to the one that Katherine faced. He has spent over 40 years dedicated to the Israelites. It has not been easy, and he's led them through some really difficult kind of situations and experiences together. And here they are, so close to the finish line. But Moses knows that he's not going to enter the promised land. And instead, he's having to hand over the reins to Joshua. When I imagine myself in this position, I think that I would have been really disheartened. Maybe there'd be a sense of disappointment or even failure and not being able to go there myself. But what we see in this passage is that Moses responds in a different way. And so let's read our passage today, which comes from Deuteronomy 31. It says, "Then Moses went out and spoke these words to all Israel. I am now 120 years old, and I am no longer able to lead you. The Lord has said to me, you shall not cross the Jordan. The Lord your God himself will cross over ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you will take possession of their land. Joshua also will cross over ahead of you, as the Lord said. And the Lord will do to them what he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, whom he destroyed along with their land. The Lord will deliver them to you, and you must do to them all that I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the presence of all Israel, "Be strong and courageous, for you must go with this people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors to give them, and you must divide it among them as their inheritance. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged." And it's in moments like this that I realise why Moses was the one that was leading the Israelites and not me. The passage, doesn't it? It finishes with that kind of beautiful handover from Moses to Joshua. And I'm so sure those kind of verses that he says, be strong and courageous, are ones that we kind of can recite over and over again. But what I'm amazed by is how Moses is able to say these words to him during such a difficult time for him. He knows he is going to die. Yet his mission is not yet complete. He hasn't done what he came to do. But for Moses, his response is of faithful obedience. And so how can Moses respond in this way? And what does he know that we don't, that maybe we could learn from this passage today? Well, I think there are three things I'd love to just chat through quickly. Firstly, that we are just a piece of the puzzle. Secondly, we are called to be investing in those coming behind us. And thirdly, God looks for faithfulness, not success. And so firstly, we are just a piece of the puzzle. It would have been very easy for Moses to think that he was, an essential part of the journey of the Israelites. That he had to go with them into the promised land because that's because he was so important to them. And he'd been their leader for a very long time. And as we said before, through some really difficult situations. But he realised that it was about more than just him. And I think that is key for us also. That when God invites us to take part and to build his kingdom here on earth, no matter how big or essential, we think we are to his plan, we are always just one piece of the bigger puzzle that is going on. And we will never last. That's the kind of reality of it, isn't it? The only thing that is guaranteed to last is God and his kingdom. And so we are just a piece of the bigger puzzle. Secondly, we are called to be investing and kind of encouraging those who are coming behind us. Joshua was ready to take on the leadership of the Israelites because Moses had been investing and encouraging in him long before any of this had happened. He was passing on his wisdom, passing on his knowledge, but way back before this moment comes about when he hands it over to him. And what I get from this is that there's no sense of jealousy. There's no sense of kind of holding back stuff from Joshua. But yet there's a willingness to train, to encourage, and to hand over when the time was right. Encouragement for younger people is so much more powerful than we realise. Please don't hold back from encouraging people, particularly those who, are younger than you or maybe kind of coming up behind. Please keep encouraging them because it really does make a difference. And thirdly, what we see here is that God looks for faithfulness and not success. Or maybe let's put it another way, that God's way of succeeding is to be faithful. It would have been easy to look at Moses and to think that he had failed, that he hadn't completed the job that he came to do, but this was not the plan that God had for him. But nor was it a failure on Moses' part. Simply, this was not what God had in store. And instead, God recognizes the obedience, the faithfulness of Moses. This is what mattered to him. This is the reason that God was so close to Moses. And for Moses, he was secure in the knowledge that he had done what was asked of him. That he didn't need to reach the promised land to say that he had succeeded. He had done what he came to do, and that was to be obedient to God. And so how do we face similar situations that seemingly might look like failure, or where we're disappointed by an outcome or a potential outcome? How do we face these situations like Moses did? Well, firstly, we keep perspective. We know that we are just one piece of a much larger puzzle, and that God holds all these kind of pieces together. Secondly, we keep encouraging others. Keep passing on what you know. Keep sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. Keep encouraging those people. And thirdly, keep being faithful. God looks for our faithfulness above our success and our kind of seeming wins. He looks for our obedience, and that's what he recognises in us. And really, that's all we're asked to do. Amen.